Okay, sounds good. So again, good morning, good afternoon from wherever you are joining in. Welcome to this weekly webinar series of Elite CISO. And today we have Sean Duca from Palo Alto. And the topic is very exciting, right? As you see on the title, the topic is why is your EDR not working? So in past almost 2 years, we have done a lot of webinars, with different vendors, and we have kind of embraced EDR. So I will just mute from a panelist. Anybody's mic is on. Deepak, can you mute yourself? And Sean, if you can also mute.
Yep.
Great, because there was a lot of background noise coming in. So yeah, as I was saying that we have done a lot of webinars around EDR, and we as CISOs and CIOs have kind of embraced the migration from traditional antivirus to EDR. And now when I started talking to Palo Alto and the theme was like, why your EDR is not working? So I was like, okay, let's see what the counter view over here is, because EDR seems to be a silver bullet for solving the endpoint security problems. And now today we are going to hear from Sean in terms of what is missing in the EDR and what do we need to ensure that we have effective endpoint security in place, right? So this is how the webinar schedule is going to look like. I will do a quick introduction, which I'm doing right now. So 11 to 11:05, quick introduction. And then from 11:05 till 11:45, Sean will do a quick 35-40 minute session, followed up by question and answer. So if you have any Q&A, you can type in the Q&A tab, or you can also put it on the chat, and then somebody from Palo Alto will respond. And if you want to ask a live question, you can wait till about 11:45, and that's when we will have a formal Q&A session. And at the end, typically we do a CPE. So I will share a secret password to download your CPE certificate. And then there's a feedback form as well this time. So Deepak from Palo Alto will share a feedback form towards the end of the session, and it is a faster finger first, right? So the first 5 people who submit the feedback will get a 2,500 rupees Amazon gift card from Palo Alto. And then there is a lucky draw as well, right? So in every webinar at the end we do a lucky wheel spin, and one winner used to get a lucky draw. One winner used to be get some kind of gadget or something. And this time, instead of one lucky draw, we are doing 5 lucky draws. So thanks Palo Alto for that. And the lucky person will get, and the gift is the standing laptop table, right? You can see that I'm standing right now. And we used to give Alexa earlier, and now we have kind of switched to the laptop tables. Why? Because we care for your fitness. And at Elite CISO, apart from security, we also focus a lot on the physical fitness side. So you will see our heroes over here on the screen, and many of them are attending the webinar as well. Uh, so we have a dedicated fitness group from across the world. There are multiple CIOs and CISOs from around the world, and all we do is we focus on fitness. So whether it is running, jogging, swimming, squash, whatever. And these gentlemen, they covered 100 days of running challenge, right? So I think 2 days back they completed their 100 days of running challenge, where they were supposed to run every single day for next 100 days. So that's what they completed, and we are kind of celebrating that. So kudos to you guys. And since fitness is very important for us, you can see that during the lockdown, or even when you go to office, you sit a lot, right? And sitting has got its own problems and own dangers. So as the image says, the foggy brain, the cancer, heart disease, and whatnot comes with prolonged sitting. And even in lockdown, while working from home, we are sitting a lot, right? So we kind of promote that you stand while you are attending a webinar or your office calls or something. That's why those standing laptop table gifts are there. And if you stand and attend, there are many benefits around it. It increases productivity, it gets your focus on the topic, and it reduces the heart disease, various kind of heart diseases. It helps you with the weight loss as well. So that's what we are promoting. So I'm giving you a challenge to attend this webinar while standing up, right? Don't warm your seat. Stand and attend this webinar. You will be more focused during the session. So this is a challenge to you guys. If you accept the challenge, type yes on the chat window so that we can see how many people are participating into it. Okay, having said that, over to you, Sean, for your session. I'm going to pause my screen share so that you can share it. Over to you. And I see that a lot of people have accepted this challenge. Great, guys. Good to see your response.
Vikas,
Okay,
I can't seem to share from my screen over here.
So Anand, you might want to give access to Sean to share the screen.
You can do it to the one that's got my profile picture, not the video. Just sharing from another computer.
Anand, can you take care of that?
Anand, there are 2 logins from Sean. You have to make the other one as co-host, please.
Yeah, Sean is a co-host, Deepak.
Yeah, the other one. There are 2 Sean's logged in. Anand.
The one that's got no video, it's just a profile picture.
Yep.
Got that. It's done.
Oh, perfect. Got it. Yep. Awesome. Thank you. And hopefully we've got the right one here. And let me just get up to the top. Beautiful. Okay. Well, oops. Always good when that happens. All right. Well, thank you very much, everyone, and I really appreciate it. And Vikas, thank you for your kind words and doing the introduction as well. As we sort of talked about, I'm going to sort of spend the next 30 or so minutes with you, and really touching on, I guess, what I believe is why EDR is not really sort of working for us today. And if we sort of have a little bit of a history lesson as to sort of where we actually got to today and what's sort of going on. I think the big thing that we've really been seeing in the industry, not too sure why that's happening, but the big challenge of what we're sort of seeing right now is obviously security teams are actually struggling. And even if we take a bit of a step back, we've been struggling for a long time. And if you think about how this whole generational progress has actually sort of happened, for many, many years, we start off with antivirus technology. We then had the endpoint protection platform, or the EPP, come out as a quadrant from Gartner. And that was really around addressing kind of what the anti-malware solution was. It then started to factor in EDR, and EDR really came out as kind of the successor to anti-malware technology. And the way that I probably would also call it as well, EDR became a necessity because of the fact of the failings of the efficacy, of the security efficacy of anti-malware technology. But then when we start to think about it a little bit further, we're still in the same position. We have too much noise, creating too many alerts. Our teams are still swamped with many different alerts. And yet today, we still have many different point products that really are pieced together, that were never really designed to interoperate and work together. So even if you turn around and say, well, I've got an EPP solution, I've got an EPP suite, that's still a number of different solutions that were never designed to interoperate and work together. And when I say interoperate and work together, it's not just simply in a management console. How am I getting the right telemetry, the right bit of information into the hands of the people that are really going to make an impact to prevent a material impact to my own organization? And that's where I make the comment to say EDR is not enough. And hence why over a year ago now, we likely, Palo Alto Networks were an organization that came out to say EDR is not enough. And we were one of the first to really create that space called XDR, Extended Detection and Response. And the key part around that one was the fact that we were trying to really address this key aspect, that you needed more than just an EDR to solve that, which is simply just pulling information from your endpoints, grabbing all the context, the logs, the data, the threats that are actually exhibited on your endpoints, feeding that up into your security operations center or the team that are really sort of tasked with focusing to hunt. And what we're trying to address here is how do we start to grab information from the network, the cloud, and bringing that all together. But then doing it in such a way that it's a little bit more cohesive and really sort of trying to address that. It's safe to say now that 1 year on, we've really got a case of 10 different vendors have now created solutions in this space that we call XDR. So let's not simply take our word for it as Palo Alto Networks, that XDR is the only way forward. You have 9 other vendors that are actually creating solutions. So I'd like to say imitation is a great form of flattery, but it's really out of a necessity because EDR to a large extent has failed the same way that anti-malware technology on its own has failed us as well. And it's really around trying to address how do we grab the network, the endpoint, and information that's sitting in our cloud put that in a data lake, that we can really start to provide some advanced analytics and start to look at the behavioral anomalies that actually are exhibited there to really start to provide some operational efficiencies, but really start to ultimately reduce the risk and the exposure that actually exists to each of your systems and the systems that are actually in your own environment. The other key part around this one is how do we also start to mature your own organization? Because this is where we need to start thinking about how do we get to a point that we are leveraging analytics with and applying sort of all of that integrated rich data and analytics that are actually there, and really getting that goal of reducing the risk, lowering the mean time to respond and the mean time to detect. But then at the same time, what do you do with this when it's right? And how do you really start to provide this key information? We need to start automating as much as we possibly can. If I think back to my early days, starting in the antivirus industry in 2000, I started in an organization that had 500,000 pieces of malware in its database. Fast forward 20 years today, and probably every single security vendor in the planet receives in excess of 500,000 new pieces of net new malware every single day. So what we had basically captured back then in 2000 was from the previous 20 years. Fast forward 20 years, this is what we now get every single day. So it's a case of we can't simply just keep up. And that was just simply the malware problem. Now we have a plethora of different threats and challenges that are actually out there. But we need to capture all this information from a range of different sources that actually exist inside our own organization. Our SecOps people, the security operations teams, need to have a better way to try and solve the challenges they're seeing. They need to be able to start to grab this information and going off to one console and another console and then making them sit down and try and work out how do they stitch all that together fundamentally causes more pain, more headaches, more challenges that we're simply just saying we've reincarnated the exact same problem over and over again. Hence why we then have the XDR space that's really sort of popped up here. So this is the key thing. So this is something that actually came at the start of this year. So whilst XDR was something that Palo Alto Networks came out with in 2019, Gartner themselves actually recognized that it's a key area. So as they say, in response to the security skills gap and the attacker trends, XDR tools, machine learning and automation capability are emerging to improve security productivity and detection accuracy. They see this as one of their key top security trends that's actually happening moving forward. And it's not just simply a case of let's just rebadge EDR to XDR, it's an evolution. Endpoint detection response is part of XDR. But at the same time, we're looking at how do we start to grab information from the network and the cloud. So if you are an EDR vendor or you are using EDR solutions today, the first thing you need to do is really start to say, why don't we actually get to a point of capturing information from the network? That means if you're using an EDR solution, you would need to go off and buy a network threat analyzer solution. You need to be able to integrate that information directly into your XDR solution. You would also need to be able to capture information from your logs, from your cloud instances as well, and start to feed that in. And this is where time and time again, it's like, why do we need to keep on buying yet another product and process to do that? And this is why we've actually looked at Palo Alto Networks to say, how do we actually try and solve that? So our strategy here is really around how do we prevent everything that you can. Don't know why the graphics have not sort of rendered here, but sorry about that one. But a key thing, our key strategy is we need to prevent everything you can. Everything you can't prevent, we need to be able to detect and investigate as fast as we possibly can. But at the same time, we need to ensure that we leverage as much as we can automation to get smarter and every single time we see a brand new incident. I need to be able to stitch all this information together, which is a key thing for the Cortex strategy from Palo Alto Networks around how we solve XDR. Let's just do this. Oh, still doesn't want to do it. Okay. So building that one out even further. We need to prevent everything. And this is where we use advanced machine learning, exploit techniques, looking at the attack behaviors that actually exist. And we do that all from within one agent to basically improve the operational efficiencies that are actually there. Detecting everything that's not prevented is really around how do we start to really apply the analytics of the information that we've collected. And this is leveraging what we call the data lake. And this is where we're simply saying, let's consume the information in here. And from our standpoint at Palo Alto Networks, it's not just simply a case of let's just grab our own Palo Alto Networks next generation firewall logs. We can actually grab firewall logs from Fortinet, Checkpoint, Cisco, a range of other third-party vendors to add some further context to really broaden out that capability. So from our viewpoint, it's a case of we know that you can't be end-to-end Palo Alto Networks inside an organization. We'd love it. But we also know that we can start to say, migrating you to that world is a step-by-step process. But in the meantime, we could say on your endpoint, great, let's actually start to now grab some extra context and information. And ultimately, our job is to provide that ability that we can start to digest and ingest the information that's actually there. Sorry, ingest, then digest that information and really provide a faster way to get you to that security outcome. Oops, let's just move on. I don't know what's actually happening with my graphics. Sorry about that one. So our approach is to really try and break down the silos here. This is where we're looking at the endpoint protection and platform piece, looking at EDR, obviously where we're sort of just that natural progression, which is what XDR then sort of moves into, looking at the network detection and response phase, or the network threat analyzer solutions, and the user behavior analytics, breaking down the silos that we just say, let's go to one central location to really grab all this information and start to provide that information across a better way to do detection and response across endpoint, network, and cloud. So let's think about it. EDR is something that's effectively part of XDR. It's not simply just saying, remove every single thing that you've actually got there. You don't need an EDR. What we're saying, EDR on its own is failing. And that's where you need that extended detection response phase to get to that point to say, I need the endpoint, the network, and the cloud. So fundamental key piece here. If you are wedded to an EDR solution, you will be told at some point in time by your EDR vendor that you will need to go off and buy other solutions to ingest and digest information from other people. Now, this is when you start to think about, I've got a tool to do this, I've got a tool to do this, and simply starts adding more and more tools. The same problem we've been doing for years. Our premise here around what we're trying to achieve at Palo Alto Networks with the Cortex strategy is saying, here is one place that I can simply start to grab all this information and make my life easier in the security operations center so analysts can actually start to work out and do their job in a better way. So this is where we need to start to think about, how do we start to grab this information? How do we look at the current behavior of the threats that are actually out there, irrespective of where it's coming from? The user activity, the device activity. Start to understand who are the actual users and what actually happens over time. Start to compare that with other types of users that actually exist in the environment. And then also start to work out the patterns. Start to work out what's really happening here. Who are the different devices, the types, the machines, and really start to incorporate all this information. And now I can start to see something that's happening on the endpoint, which is some rich information. But I now need to start to complement that with what am I seeing on the network. So when you start to think about what this actually means, it's about grabbing all these disparate sources of information. And this is not trying to recreate the SIEM space, but it's more around how do I actually start to grab this information and make some sense out of it, but get the machines to really start to stitch it all together and make some sense out of it themselves. Because using all these different tools is only going to add to the problem that we've actually got inside my own environment. By grabbing all these different use cases, I can then start to look at the different types of targeted attacks that are actually out there, the risky behaviors. I can start to detect anomalies that are actually taking place. I can also start to work out if there's going to be a user that's potentially a malicious insider. Why do they actually keep on trying to access different types of systems across the network, leveraging something that's on the endpoint, elevating privileges on an endpoint? This is where time and time again, we want to be able to see what is it that people are actually doing and grabbing all these different use cases and bringing it all together. If you're a vendor that's simply looking at XDR and saying, I have all these different products and you need multiple different consoles, that's not really solving the burden and the pain that's exhibited inside an organization today, in your organizations. It's all about how do we make it easier for you to actually consume all of this. The next key piece around the platform is obviously grabbing all this capability. So on the endpoint, we're not just simply looking at, let's just do detection and response and simply providing some capability around prevention. We started many, many years ago with a model that was prevention first. And yes, you cannot prevent everything. But for the things that we cannot prevent, let's have the ability that we can start to detect and respond. So we take the approach of a different way. We say, let's actually prevent first. This is where we actually start to look at a range of different exploit techniques that are used and simply prevent that. We have the ability to start to look at the ways of different types of ransomware threats are actually compromising systems and provide protection to that without the need of any type of signatures and threats that are actually out there. We're leveraging some of the suite features that are typically found in EPP solutions, host firewalling, disk encryption, device control, starting to leverage all of that capability so we can say, how do we now get into that system? And the other key piece is the extensive operating system coverage that we have. We're not just simply tied to Windows. We provide the same capability on Mac, Linux, Android, VDI, containers. We simply work on every single one of those mediums when it comes to the endpoint. Now, for things that we cannot actually do in terms of preventing it, great, let's actually grab some of this extensive information that's coming back and start to stitch it together from the endpoint, from the network and the cloud itself. And the other key piece that I find amazing is more around the response piece. How do I now actually go off and have a live terminal to the system and actually do something with what's actually there? How do I start to quarantine or isolate that host? How do I also get to the point that I can say, I want to do a live recovery right now, which is something that people have been struggling to do for a very long time with EDR solutions that are actually inside their own environment. Key thing that's a unique factor with us, with all this information that we're grabbing with XDR, we'll give you 30 days of log storage that is completely searchable. Every other vendor is either going to give you 7 days, maybe even 14 days or less. So we believe here that the more data you actually have, the more you can start to retrospectively go back in time and work out, did I see a particular problem inside my own environment? The network traffic analysis allows us to start to ingest traffic logs to detect those anomalies that exhibit on the network. From the Palo Alto Networks next generation firewall, yes, you'll be able to have some advanced capabilities to see what's going on those threats that are on the network. If you're using a third-party firewall as an example, we can still ingest that information to get some context that you can actually start to add on top of all those different events and alerts that are there. And that then gives your threat hunters the ability that they can start to go out and do the triage and hunt and try and work out what's actually going to cause a material impact inside my own organization. Rather than trawling through different logs from different systems, we're putting all of that in one central place and also grouping and stitching all that together. We give you the ability that you've got a 50 times better response process to actually trawl through this information, something that no one else can actually offer you inside the environment, inside those solutions that you're actually using today or potentially looking at today as well. And also creating these custom rules that you can start to say, if something looks like this, automatically prevents that key piece there. But the key difference as to what makes us different is the fact that we can give you the ability to look at both endpoint, network, and cloud, and do that all through one centralized console that no one else can actually do today. So I saw one quick question talk about the key differentiator. That's a key piece right there. Giving you the ability that you can start to uncover those threats in a meaningful way in real time. So don't take my word for it. And this is where we basically look at the MITRE attack framework. So MITRE is an organization that have basically been working on what's called the attack coverage. 12 different distinct phases and different techniques that are used by attackers today that simply go through and start to work out, these are all the different types of variations that an attacker could use, different types of techniques to actually get inside the environment. This was round one that took place probably a couple of months back now. Back then, we scored 88%, and we're sort of the leading class in terms of all the vendors that you actually see on sort of listed there as well. And that's simply providing protection across all the different attack technique coverage. That was just simply looking at XDR with just the endpoint capability, not even looking at the network telemetry that's actually there. All the other vendors have simply got EDR solutions. This was actually using APT29, so a particular attack that was actually used by the Chinese MSS, or claims to be the Chinese MSS. And this is where they simply just said, this is how we can actually test to see who is up to scratch, who can actually stop a lot of these different threats that are actually out there. In round two, they then went through the process again and started to say, okay, what can we do differently? This is where we started to add some extra telemetry as well to see what's going on. And started to grab some of those network information and feeding that into the process. Again, we're coming up on top simply by providing that complete coverage across those 200 plus different types of techniques across the 12 different paradigms. So again, we're seeing leaps and bounds ahead of what the pure play EDR vendors are, simply by grabbing some of that extra information from the network and the cloud telemetry that actually exists inside people's environments. This gives us the ability that we could start to look at a range of different types of threat vectors, the different types of attack coverage that's actually used. I'll just move into the next slide, because it'll actually probably help with my voice if I start to build this one out as well. And this is where we're simply looking at a range of different ways. So the first one, was APT3, which was the threat actor that everyone believes is the Chinese Ministry of State Security. The 11 vendors that went through, obviously we came up on top on that one. For the second round, APT29, so Cozy Bear, which has been attributed to the Russian government. Again, 22 vendors went through this process, and again, we came up on top. And this is us just simply saying, don't take our word for it that our technology is comprehensive and has better coverage. This is independent testing that's actually been taken place, looking at the security efficacy. Let me stress that point again. We're looking at the security efficacy of the solutions that are actually there. The reason why I stress that point is it's not really a case of who actually has the better or the most deployed technology out there, or who's been in this game long enough, surely you could trust them. It's more a case of who could do the job to stop the challenges and the threats that are presenting themselves in people's organizations today, the most comprehensive way and the most secure way to provide that secure outcome. Think about the world that we came from. We talked about a day where anti-malware technology was no longer able to deal with the modern day threat. EPP solutions came around and said, let's use a suite of different technologies. And that was the best of suite approach. EDR came out to really try and solve the failings of anti-malware technology. Yet again, we've seen EDR is blinded and has visibility issues and challenges because it cannot see what's going on the network. From that point on, XDR was born. And this is where we came out to market with that solution. Fast forward today, 10 different vendors are actually playing in that exact same space. And this is where we're actually starting to come up head to head with these other vendors. And this is where you can actually see it yourself to say, how do we actually deal with the security efficacy? So if you are looking at a way to try and work out how do I try and stop security challenges popping up, you need to be looking at the security efficacy. Not the best deal, not the cheapest product, not something like that. The way that we're actually going to stop the most amount of threats that are popping up inside your environment, because that's what matters. Because when you actually get the phone call from your boss to say that maybe someone has actually compromised your environment, you're not going to say that I bought the product that everyone else is using because that's what everyone else is using. This is the case of saying, I bought the solution that actually got the best outcome and it's able to stop the most amount of threats and challenges that are out there that's been independently tested. So MITRE's attack techniques and tactics are all displayed in relevant alerts and events. You can then start to create your own type of rules, as we call behavioral indicators of compromise, to say, if I see this again, automatically stop it. You can manually start to create these own ones. We automatically also push out BIOC rules as and when we see fit. So we keep on providing all of this telemetry behind the scenes. If you don't have the security nous or the capability inside your own environment, this is where you can also start to leverage the managed threat hunting service that we actually offer from Palo Alto Networks. That is backed by our threat intelligence team called Unit 42. That provide that advanced analytics where they can say they can research, analyze, share this information of what we're seeing the adversary doing today, and start to provide that capability down to you as well. Something that our partners actually offer, and that's backended by all of us as well. So if we start to have a look at that visibility stack, and this is where I start to talk about it's absolutely key. The centerpiece of all of this is how do we start to look at the EPP, the EDR capability and say, everything at the center of that, how do I now start to do more than what just EDR on its own does? I need to capture the network threat and analyzer log and information that's actually there. I need to be able to start to grab a lot of this telemetry that's really sort of passed around my network. You know, from a recent report that we released around IoT, we're seeing more and more of these devices that are popping up. Today, we have 8 billion connected devices on our networks worldwide. You know, in the next 7 years, we believe that it's going to hit 41 billion connected devices. So if you don't have visibility of what's happening on the network, this is the time that you need to start to think about how do I make that change happen? And if you think that you don't have IoT devices on your environment, I would probably challenge you at that thought to say, you probably don't really understand your own environment. So now's the time that you actually want to make some change happen. And it's not just simply a case of grab information from the world according to Palo Alto Networks only. We give you that visibility to capture the information from a third party logs and it basically ingest that logs and also digest it as well and make some value out of it. We are the only vendor that will actually look at our own logs and third party logs as well. Again, look at the security efficacy. Look at who's actually got the ability to stop all these modern threats that are actually out there, because that's what really matters. Because at the end of the day, the reason why, the reason why Cortex XDR works is because we need to be able to be everywhere. And the network is now everywhere. You know, irrespective of you being in the cloud, in public cloud infrastructure, in your own public cloud, private cloud infrastructure, your own networks, we need to start to grab a lot of this information. And remote working is it's something that's here as well. We need to be able to see what's happening on the endpoint. We also need to see what's going on through the wires we're sort of connecting through those VPN connectivities. Maybe we're on the VPN, maybe we're not. Doesn't make a difference, but I can still capture this information, broad brush across everything that's going on there. I need to be able to use the same tools and techniques that an attacker uses to try and stop this. If they're leveraging automation as much as they can, we need to use automation to fight back. We need to be able to use automation to orchestrate our own defenses, to automatically provide protection and prevent these types of attacks from attacking our system. We need to stop the manual correlation. Every time I talk to an organization, they're telling me that they're still struggling with the cybersecurity skills gap. Some people don't. Some people believe that they've actually solved that problem. That's great, but they're also leveraging automation to complement the work that humans are actually doing. You know, improving your security outcomes is a way that we can start to provide all of this through one consolidated endpoint. Move beyond the days of an EPP solution, which has multiple agents that need to be deployed to an endpoint. And start to leverage a better way that we can really reduce the amount of noise that you're seeing inside your own environment. You know, security policy enforcement, driving that right down. You know, when we start to talk about an ROI, return of investment, no one comes close to actually doing this from an XDR standpoint. And I'm sure there's probably some competitors that are actually on this call as well. Hello to all of them. And I'm actually quite okay to say that from an investment standpoint, you're going to get a better return on investment here. That's a key thing that we can stand by, because we can also prove it. We can prove that we've got a better security efficacy. We've got a clear vision and development velocity. We've come from a place where, in what we've done in a short period of time, our capabilities outgrown where a lot of existing vendors in the EDR space have actually been for a number of years. And look at the attack MITRE framework as a perfect example of that one. And not just once, twice. And we'll keep on doing that again simply by grabbing the rich information that's already there across the network, the endpoint, and the cloud. That platform approach works. Moving beyond the point product solutions that have been jammed together to try and hopefully achieve an outcome does not work anymore. And I can assure you, I've worked in this space for 20 years now, and I know what actually does or does not work. And moving forward, you need to be able to rely on a platform that's really going to be able to stitch all this information together. So with that, I'll pause right there and open up to questions before I probably lose my voice from talking in such a passionate way.
Sean, very interesting session. Now you said hi to the competitors. So let me ask this very first question. Who are your competitors in this space?
I don't think I really want to sort of advertise for them for free, but there's a number of different people that are actually starting to come up with XDR solutions. Mm-hmm. You know, a large, I'll call them an operating system vendor. Obviously, they do a lot more than that. Recently came out with their own XDR offering 2 weeks ago. You know, some people that have actually evolved from being an EPP vendor to coming out with EDR solutions, they were one of the first to come out with it as well. There's a number of smaller players that have actually come out. So there's a lot of people there. So now if you think about it, we created a space. And I'll even go through a little bit of history lesson. 13 years ago, Palo Alto Networks created a space called the Next Generation Firewall. And we said, this is a capability that people need to have. There's obviously a couple of key requirements, but we said, this is an area that you need to do, and this is how you do it. You know, a lot of people then said, you don't need a next-gen firewall, you don't need a next-gen firewall. Fast forward 13 years, there's a lot of people that have actually got a next-gen firewall. That same logic, we've basically said, let's create a way to say, you need to have the ability to provide extended detection and response that's capturing more than just the endpoint. It's capturing network and cloud telemetry. You know, fast forward, we've got 9 extra vendors that are now in that space. So that if anything, that's validating the need for this. Otherwise, people wouldn't be creating it. So I envisage that at some point in time, we'll have more, which is great. But I'm telling you right now, it's going to be easier to try and solve the problem by grabbing all this information from us, because no one else is doing it like the way that we're doing it.
Wonderful, wonderful. Sounds great. So I think let's get into the Q&A now. Sean, can you go to the Q&A tab and see there are multiple questions out there?
Yeah, absolutely. Let me just move things around and I will, where are we? So are there recommendations from worlds of Gartner Forrester that removing antivirus software is fine as long as EDR software is installed? Endorsement percentage of organizations moving to EDR would help in convincing business teams. Look, it's hard for me to actually sort of respond on Gartner or Forrester's behalf. Excuse me. They would probably be best placed to do that. If you remove your EDR software because you don't want to rely on your AV software, the question that I'd probably ask you is, can you even do prevention? Because all you're really be doing is detecting and responding a threat and just saying, okay, I saw something, now let me clean up. So I probably wouldn't really advise to that one. But what I would do is start to think about what are some other ways that you could start to solve the threat. Think about a more holistic way of how you can really sort of achieve that particular outcome. You know, think about how do I have that compensating control that's there to say, can I prevent something? If I can't prevent it, how can I do my detection response? And that may actually drive the need for you to say, I don't need my incumbent solution that's actually out there. But good question. Is machine learning algorithm work on endpoint or cloud? Is the learning based on collective endpoint or individual behavior? Good question. So this information is all fed up into what we call the data lake. The data lake will basically process the logs that are basically being captured from the endpoint or from your cloud instances or from your network telemetry. So whatever you can feed it, the more you can feed it, the better it's going to be. We apply all of our network threat behavior analysis to that, and we can effectively consume that as a cloud delivered security service. So all of that intensive number crunching that's actually required to do a lot of this is actually driven up in the cloud. That's why we actually leverage the cloud to help us out there. So a lot of that collective analysis is really sort of applied at that point. And we're looking at it from the collective of inside your own organization. Sorry, let me phrase. We're looking at it from the individual machine. We're looking from the collective systems that are inside the organization. But because we've also amassed thousands of different organizations that are also using this across the board, we're also looking at it en masse to say, is this something that's considered net new inside that organization? Let's call it Sean Incorporated on that particular machine called Sean's Mac. Or are we actually seeing this across the different types of organizations that are out there? So we're looking at multiple data points that providing you with that sort of real-time ability. For NTR data can be gathered from existing investments, IDS, IPS, or does it have to be Palo Alto Networks products? So today you can basically grab your network information from Palo Alto Networks next generation firewalls. And a next gen firewall obviously includes firewall capability for layer 7. It does the threat prevention, which is IPS, URL filtering. So it's looking at the web proxies capability of it as well. So we're grabbing all this information and we're also grabbing it from the cloud instances, so anything you've got deployed in public cloud infrastructure. For the network, so for the third-party logs, we can also grab third-party logs from Checkpoint, Cisco, Fortinet, Checkpoint, Cisco, Fortinet firewalls, and basically feed all of that into the data lake as well. So they're the only solutions you can basically start to grab that information from. What are the other third-party integration XDR supports other than next-gen firewalls? I just went through that one, so that's all good. What are the top 3 key differences between XDR and EDR? EDR is part of XDR, but it's evolved to basically say, I'm now looking at network and cloud information. So the key differences is really moving beyond just endpoint. If you have an EDR vendor that's going to say, oh, you need to now get the network logs, great. They're now starting to follow suit to say they're working down a model of XDR. They're going to go tell you to buy another product that's not from them, then that's just going to create more complexity because we're adding another product on top of another complex process and creating more and more gaps every single time. That's your challenge. We're trying to move away from that paradigm. How do you overcome the reduction in business and cut in profits to be managed during and after COVID-19? Excellent question. Biggest question and thoughts that I've actually discussed over the last 6, almost 7 months now is vendor consolidation. Every organization that's now starting to think about my revenues may decline. The big thing they want to do is obviously protect their profits that are actually there. So they're starting to say, how do I now reduce the impact on my bottom line? How do I get cut costs out of the business? The first thing that everyone is doing is talking about vendor consolidation. This is where a platform approach works. I'm saving you time, money, and effort, and I'm providing you a better outcome. This is how we can actually help you in what I like to call not the new post-COVID, new normal, the new now. We're doing this today. We've been doing this for a long time. We're going to keep on helping organizations achieve this. So what are your options available for isolated environments? Great. We can also do a broker. So for people that have got air-gapped environments, they can effectively do a broker. We can say all these informations that are there. We can still start to offload that information. So it can be done. Think of like a data diode type of concept. How are Cortex XDR better than any other vendors and what are the advantages? I think I've actually talked about this enough, but I'll say it one more time. Have a look at the ATT&CK framework. This is why. So don't take my word for it. Look at someone who's actually tested our solutions as well as 23 different other vendors to see who can actually provide a comprehensive way to stop the attacker using the ATT&CK framework. 200 different plus techniques across 7 different pillars to try and stop those attackers that are actually out there. The advantages, better outcome, faster time to actually respond, stitching the events automatically and correlating these events all together to save you time to go to multiple different consoles and try and work out what's going on. There is no point your EDR solution telling you Now would be a good time to you to go to a network solution and grab some network information to try and work out, is this a false positive or not? I'm giving you that information to work it out and say, here is the answer. Follow these steps, and this is how we can actually try and solve some of these challenges. We talked about sort of the OT environments. It's all good. What cloud vendors are supported with XDR today? All cloud vendors. So from a Palo Alto Networks next generation firewall perspective, we work on every single cloud vendor. So we're agnostic. So we can work with Microsoft Azure, GCP, AWS, Oracle. We can work on Ali Cloud. You know, for us, it's all about being ubiquitous. It's all about being consistent security across every single one of these mediums. Understand that Cortex can be deployed in the cloud to protect the cloud workloads and endpoints. Is this correct? Yes. So we can basically install ourselves on those workloads that you've actually got out there. If we can't actually be installed on a particular image or instance that you've actually got running in the cloud, great, collect the network telemetry that's actually there. I can feed that information directly into Cortex and provide you that ability. Does XDR prevent work parallelly with other security endpoints? Yes, it can. So we've actually had people use this side by side to try and migrate away from their existing anti-malware solution that they feel that nice and warm and fuzzy feeling, and we still do all the prevention capability and the detection response while they still go through that process. And then eventually we say, we're doing all this capability, we're stopping everything before it even hits that other solution. Would you like to now turn it off? Yes. And they have that comfort level to do that. So we can work in parallel with these security products that are actually there. The term XDR is being used by a few other vendors too, thus making it a generic security acronym. What is your take on that, Sean? Same way that they're doing with the next gen firewall. People are just basically saying this is a capability. It's a space. You know, Gartner is saying extended detection and response. I'm telling you the way that we actually solve XDR. Someone could come out and say, I do XDR too, which they're already doing, but they're solving it a completely different way. It's not the way that I solve it because I'm giving you the better outcome. Can we avoid spending on conventional AV on endpoints? Yes, you can. Go for it now. How do we save and contain on spiraling costs of security? Stop buying multiple piecemeal solutions that someone told you is best of breed here, best of breed there, best of breed there. You have 50 security solutions in your environment that were never designed to interoperate and work together. Stop the madness now. Start to work on an integrated way that is effectively going to work on a platform. The platform approach does work. Please, I can assure you it does work. Do we have XDR competitive intelligence? Of course we do. Reach out to us. So send an email and we can basically start to go through and help you understand what's different in some of these areas. You know, me telling you what every single competitor is doing across this widget, that widget, great. That's going to help you out, maybe. But my big thing would actually be test it in your own environment. Prove it to yourself that something you've actually got inside your environment is not working today. And we can actually stand up that infrastructure to say, let's test it out and prove it to you. How would licensing work on the endpoint network and devices and cloud involved? We'll start on endpoint, excuse me, and then we can start to take in feeds from other different areas. So it's obviously going to be an endpoint license that we can start to consume. But please reach out to us so we can start to share with you information around licensing. Even obviously the next question was around the licensing aspect as well. So there's ways that we can talk about it. So reach out to us and we can definitely put you in contact with the right account management team that are there. What are the key metrics to look for in selecting an XDR solution? Try and work out a way that you're actually going to save yourself time, money, and effort. Is there a way that we can automate this process? Every single person will tell you they're using AI, machine learning, all these other whiz-bang capabilities. That's great. How much time and money is it going to save you? Look at their ROI. Is there a way they can actually substantiate their own claims? If someone tells you that they're using machine learning and you ask the question, and please do ask the question, how do you use machine learning? The answer should actually provide you with information. You could say, okay, I now know how you're using it. But if they turn and go, that's our secret sauce, walk away from that vendor because they're not giving you information as to how you're using it. Machine learning is just mathematics. So how do you actually help me try and save the amount of people and the time effort that's required that's actually out there? A vendor should actually be able to substantiate those claims. I know that we can. How would XDR, how fast would XDR respond as in on the cloud detection? What would be the behavior of malware virus when a machine is not connected to the cloud? It's going to basically use its own local processing. So we can actually still provide protection locally. So it has its own copy of its machine learning algorithms that it's actually pulled down from its last update. So even if a machine is offline, we can still provide protection. We can still leverage the cloud, our wildfire instance, where we can start to dynamically analyze all the different threats that are out there. So we use the combination. It's not one or the other, it's both. Will XDR in future replace EPP, UEM, EDR, UABA? For Palo Alto Networks solutions, absolutely they can. So we're probably one of the very few vendors, if not the only vendor, that we could probably put hand on heart and say, we can replace all those other solutions today. And that's a fact. So challenge your actual vendors that are actually out there that may say something that's completely different. Can we get a copy of your presentation? Sure. XDR versus SIEM. SIEM also collects data from all sources which you've mentioned. Can you please clarify? So XDR is probably going to be at some point in the future, maybe a way that we start to replace SIEM, because the value of SIEM was always about collect all the information and maybe you could get some value out of it. Retrospectively, it told you what did happen. XDR is moving into a way where it's starting to use a lot of its real-time capability to try and stitch all these events together. Does it do it for every single event that's out there? No. That's also part of the automation story that we have with Cortex XDR. So the person that actually asked that question, I would definitely suggest reaching out to us so we can actually go through in more detail what that actually means. How the automatic investigation response starts with XDR. We're simply just grabbing all these different events and we're stitching them all together. And what stitching means is we're looking to see, have we seen this in a couple of different areas? Are we grabbing it on the endpoint? Do we see something else happening on the network? We start to link all that information together automatically. We're not simply relying on you to manually go off and trawl through the logs and the events and make sense out of it. We're trying to actually get you to a point that you could see this in real time. AI ML used here requires good data, log traces, access feeds. How Palo Alto Networks helps businesses in help reducing the risk, endpoint network cloud, by effectively using both AI ML, also mature with data to provide suggestions. I think I understand, Mr. Anonymous Attendee, what you're actually asking for. But what we're actually doing is we're doing all this number crunching and processing up in our cloud, which we call the data lake, the Cortex data lake. We're ingesting information, digesting it to try and work out what's happening on your endpoint and the cloud, applying our network threat analyzing capability. So looking at behavioral analytics, which is driven by machine learning capability. And this is where we're starting to analyze, have we seen this threat somewhere else before? And we simply bring all of that together. By doing this in the cloud, we have infinite compute power and storage that we can start to look through a large, vast amount of data in real time and work out what's happening out there. We do this automatically with 30 days of data storage that you've actually got out of the gates. We're not going to provide you with 14 days. We're actually going to provide you with full 30 days capability straight away. If you need more, we can give you more. That's not a problem. How does training the machine learning-based models take place? Does this need to be done on a custom model for a particular organization? It's going to be done for your own organization, for what are the machines you've actually got there. And we also train this algorithm across every single customer base that we've got out there. So we're looking at a small base and we're looking at a large base as well. Excuse me. Did the study include all MITRE attacks? Yes, they basically looked at all different types of 200+ attacks that are actually out there. One perception with EDR is to capture too much information and lots of resources are required to manage the same. Correct. We've literally just rebadged the problem that we've had with EPP as EDR, and it's still the same problem. We need to go off and try and work out what else is happening inside your own environment. We need to still do the triage to try and work out what's happening on my endpoint. Sorry, what's happening on the network as well. What we're doing is trying to bring all of that together and try and make it easier and automated for you. By forcing the same amount of work to be done, it's not solving any problem. An EDR vendor is going to say, oh, you need me first before you need a network threat analyzer solution or a solution that actually sits on the network. But they're still going to turn around and say, you need a network solution as well. Why is that? Because they're blind to what's happening on the network. You still need all of this together. Does EDR definitely need a SOAR to work perfectly with increased security efficacy since both complement each other? Not necessarily. It's going to provide you a better response time. It's going to provide you better automation capability, but it's also looking at a range of different security feeds that are actually out there. It's not simply solely relying on what your endpoint is telling you. It's going to start to automate processes around other security tools that you've got. You know, I've seen instances where people are saying, excuse me, you know, a number of different tasks. It could be, let's say, 60-40. 60% of the repetitive tasks that are actually done in a SOC can simply be automated. That means that the humans, the people that you've actually got, the analysts that are actually out there, can start to focus on dealing with the fewer threats, but they're the ones that probably cause the greatest amount of impacts. The rest are simply automated and dealt with. How is this different from Prisma? Prisma is really focused from our end. Prisma Cloud is focused on our solutions to really secure the cloud, you know, what you're doing in the cloud. So anything you're migrating out to cloud, anything you're building in the cloud, the posture of your cloud instances, leveraging everything from containers to serverless compute power, and basically seeing that end to end. We can also start to give you the ability that you can do micro-segmentation in the cloud as well. So the key thing for Prisma is that one platform. Again, these are all solutions you would need to buy. We've got some, we went out and acquired some, and in a matter of a couple of months, which is something that no security vendor rarely ever does, is natively integrate all these technologies into one console. Prisma Cloud for us, you effectively buy one license, or sorry, you buy a SKU, and you get access to all of this capability. Even if you're immature in your security program of doing something in the cloud where you're simply just managing lift and shift workloads, you have the capability today, tomorrow, and the future that you can start to secure everything that you're doing moving forward as well. In the case of ransomware attack, how will this work? So the XDR agent could also have the anti-ransomware capability. So we're looking at a range of different ways without the need of a signature to prevent people from actually having a ransomware on their attack systems. I've seen EDR tools that have actually been unable to stop ransomware, EDR on their own. And that, obviously that could be EDR versus EDR, sure. But it could also be that you don't have the security efficacy to try and stop that, because all you're really doing is just simply reincarnating what we've been doing in the EPP world or the anti-malware world on its own. Move beyond EDR and start to think about ways of preventing threats as well. If EDR is implemented, can we work to substitute file integrity monitoring for PCR requirements? Yes, you can. How much do we need to pay compared to an EDR solution? Great question. I have no idea what you actually pay today, so it's hard for me to actually compare anything. But please reach out to us and we can get you connected to the account management team that can provide you that information. What kind of reporting are available for all of these in line with regulatory requirements? Again, sit down with us, work out what your regulatory requirements are. Yes, we've got a lot of customers that work in regulated sectors, and they do have the visibility and the reporting they actually need. If there's something that's unique, have a chat to us and we can work out what we can actually do there. Palo Alto Networks XDR has no offline scanning to scan files for signatures. Correct me if I'm wrong. I will correct you. You are wrong. You can actually do on-demand scanning. How does training and machine learning model work, take place? Does this need to be custom model for particular organization's behavior? I think I had that question before. We'll actually learn the modeling based on your own environment, plus we'll also look at the greater piece. There's not going to be something that simply is unique to you that you cannot use that model anywhere else. The training model is going to simply be, how do we start to identify a brand new way that a piece of malware or a threat is going to be working inside your own environment, and simply start to build machine learning models around that one. How do you manage legacy systems? We can actually work cross-platform on a number of different systems, and we've got better capability than most other vendors that have actually got EDR solutions in terms of coverage for operating systems. So again, have a look at the data sheet in terms of our system requirements, and you'll actually probably find that we've got some better coverage for legacy systems there as well. How to prevent ERP systems from compromise potentially by vulnerability and connected app? Great, through the network. You can't do it through an EDR solution. So again, the value of XDR is absolutely paramount if you're trying to protect an ERP solution like SAP or something like that. How many agents will run on an endpoint in XDR solution? I currently use one for AV, later to do EDR, option to use DLP. I could do all of this through one endpoint solution. So again, reach out to us and we can chat there. And of course, I had to get a question on blockchain. Blockchain is not going to help you resolve any of these issues. So thank you for that question. But Vikas, I think we're probably at time.
Yeah, that's what I was coming to. So 11:55
Sure.
local time, and we cannot have more questions. I'm actually surprised. You know, we are running these webinars in March, and this is the first webinar where we have got so many questions. So I think
Sure.
there's a lot of interest around the XDR. Great,
Yeah,
thanks
absolutely.
everyone. Yeah, great session, and thanks everyone for the interesting questions. Do you guys see my screen? Can somebody confirm?
Yep.
Great.
Yes.
Perfect. So guys, just the last closing bit. If you want to download the CPE certificate, you got to go to EliteCISOs website, which is www.elitecisos.com, and click on CPE certificate. This will take you to a different window. And if my internet works and the page loads, which it does, so type your email address here, type your name, and the password is HUNTING, hunting, all small. Once you enter that, you will get your certificate over email. Now, the last one that everybody is waiting for. So this is the Wheel of Fortune, and this time it is going to run for 5 times, right? And the winner is going to get a Portronics laptop desk or a laptop table, and I'm going to spin it. And if you are here in this session, you have to say yes on the chat that you are attending the webinar, so that we can know you are the winner and we can send you the table. Okay, guys, so here it goes. First one. And the first winner is, let's see, Ashok Kumar. Very nice. So Ashok sir is amazing personality. I mean, he has recently completed 100 days of running. He is a fitness enthusiast, been with EliteCISO for more than 2 years now. I'm sure, Ashok sir, you are there. Can you type yes on the chat window? I don't see. Ashok sir, you are there? Can you type yes? I don't see your response. Oh, I think you are not here today. No, sad to know. Okay, I'm going to run it again the second time. So we still have 5 chances to go, right? Because Ashok sir is not there. So again, the first winner is, let's see, Vijendra. Okay, Vijendra, are you there? Let's see on the chat. Oh, I don't see Vijendra ji as well. Oh, okay, hard luck. No, Ankit, as you're asking questions, this is for anybody who is attending the webinar. If you registered, oh yeah, today's Air Force Day. Ashok sir will be busy. That's true. That's true. Okay, so this is for anyone who is present in the webinar and registered. So it's still 5 more chances to go. Karthik, at least somebody has to be there. Come on, guys. You just register and don't attend. Karthik is also, yeah, you are there, but Karthik is not there, right? Let's see, Ankit, how it goes. Okay, I'm spinning it again. Yes, Sanjeev sir, I'm going to take your name. Let's see. Mukesh Mehta. Mukesh ji, are you there? No. Oh, Mr. Mukesh is also not here. Great. Let's see. Oh, Mukesh is there. Perfect, perfect, perfect. So Mukesh ji, send me your address to ship the table. Okay, 1 is gone, 4 are still left. Let's see. Yogendra Rajput. Yogendra, you there? I think I did see your name on the attendee list. Yogendra? Still not there. Okay, hard luck. Spinning now. And I hope you guys are still standing, right? Pankaj Khare. Very nice, very nice. Oh, Pankaj is here. Perfect. Perfect, perfect. Very nice. So 2 are gone. Congrats, Pankaj ji. Congrats, Mukesh. Third one. Yeah, that's great. You are standing. Wonderful. Akhilesh Agarwal. Ajiwal. Akhilesh Ajiwal. Are you there? Jitenji, okay, thanks for joining. Akhilesh is not there, right? Okay, I'm spinning it again. No, Tushar, Mukesh ji were there. He was there. Let's see. Prateek. Prateek, not there. Spinning again. Oh God, it's becoming difficult. Yes, Ankit, all the luck to you. Suresh. Suresh, you there? Going once, twice, gone. Yes, Ajit Singh, all the good luck to you guys. Let's see. Pankaj Mishra. Pankaj, you there? Pankaj. Okay, next one. I have to spin it hard, that's true. So, Joy ji. Mohan ji. Not there. There are 250 names in this wheel. Come on, guys. Nitin Gaur. Oh, Nitin ji is here. Perfect. 3 are gone. Nitin ji, send me your address, everyone who wins on vikas.arora at EliteCISOs. Sorry, vikas.arora at EliteCISOs.com. Okay, I'm spinning it again. 3 are gone. 2 more to go. And it is 12:03 already. Hang on, guys. Anil Rao. Oh, perfect. Anil Rao is there. Great, 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 Anil ji. Last one to go. 5th one. Vikas Gupta. Okay, Vikas is also not there. Great. Next one. Subramanyam ji, very nice. Good to see you. Let's see. Shijit. Shijit is here, I guess, right? Yeah, perfect. 5. All 5 are gone. Wonderful. Okay, guys. Thanks for joining the session. Thanks, Sean. Thanks, Palo Alto team for excellent session. The slides and the recorded video would be available on EliteCISO's website. Bye for now, everyone. Thanks for dialing in. See you next week for another webinar. Okay, bye.
Thanks,
everyone.
everyone.